Japan, a bustling land of dichotomies, split between the modern age and thousand-year-old traditions. This country has given birth to life-changing ideas, new technologies, and industrial innovations that have helped shape world history. Legends have also been born here. For over a millennium, the Bushi, or samurai class of old Japan, defined the ethos of the people here, controlling and shaping every facet of life in a rigidly structured society. Japanese history is filled with tales of heroic samurai who exuded the courage, unquestioned loyalty, and fearlessness expounded as the ideal qualities in the human personality. Yet for the same millennium, another legend has existed as well. A legend held in the dark attic corner of Japanese history. A legend filled with hardship, war, filial love, sacrifice, and courage among an outcast mountain people, known in whispers as Shinobi no Mono, or ninja. But exactly who and what were the ninja? Black-clad assassins? Occult practitioners? Were they heartless individuals with a penchant for blood and mayhem?
I think it's important for us to look at the reality that nobody wanted to be a ninja. This is what we had to be because our lands were taken away from us. This is what we had to be because other armies were coming in, going to take away our children, our boys to serve in the army. They're going to take our daughters away to entertain the boys in the army. They're going to take all our crops to feed the army. We can't fight that, so by creating this ninja underground resistance was a way to hang on to things. So it's important to think nobody wanted to be a ninja.
It is a group of people wanting the freedom to live their lives the way they choose rather than the way others tell them they should live their lives. And they are secretive to a point that they can pass on their philosophies, understandings of life and the universe to future generations. And they will do that whatever it takes.
I think that part of the misconception came in also from the kabuki theater. They wanted, just like we have cowboys and Indians in American culture, cowboys and Indians actually more often worked together than not. It was more of like, the Civil War type soldiers fighting the Indians and cowboys versus Indians. The same way the ninja were put up against the samurai in kabuki shows as opposed to most ninja families, given not necessarily the Momochi family where we come from, but a lot of the other ninja families were samurai. So it was more, just like Hollywood has even taken that one more step, made us assassins, the kabuki theater really made them the spies and kind of sneaky people in the background. So the entertainment industry, going all the way back to the Edo period, has really warped the image.
So returning to our original question, who and what were the ninja? In this film, we will explore this question in depth. Through historical research and detailed interviews with some of the world's top practitioners of the last surviving authentic ninja tradition, we will work to dispel many of the lies and misconceptions that have shrouded the legacy of these mysterious and intriguing shadow warriors. Theories abound as to the origins of Japan's ninja legacy. Japanese folklore and legends present theories ranging from the supernatural to the very possible. Tales of ninja descending from bird-like demons called tengu injected fear into the general populace of old Japan and added to an already negative image of the shadow warriors throughout the land. Clan-based stories also spoke of the ninja having their roots in the violent bands of Japanese pirates who, after drawing tactics and methods from Portuguese invaders, terrorized many seaside villages in old Japan. While such theories are romantically entertaining to ponder, several theories in the circles of today's legitimate practitioners are referred to more often, concerning the possible truth of the ninja's origin. One such theory, passed down by word of mouth through the generations, traces the ninja's origin back to the founding of Japan's imperial family and two ninja-like characters. The story has it that these two warriors used clandestine tactics to assist the first emperor, Jimmu, in attaining victory over the troops of Iso Castle by making a dangerous foray into enemy territory. Another theory is linked to Japan's Prince Shotoku, the man whose patronage allowed Buddhism to take root early in Japanese history.
一般的に言われているのは聖徳太子という人がいたんですけども、この人が一番最初に忍びを使って、日本中の情報を集めて、そして日本の国の一番最初の憲法を作った人なんですけどね、そういうところで大体、今の通説ではその人が一番最初に忍びを使ったということなんで、その頃かなというふうに思います。
Rare ninjutsu documents also speak of Chinese expatriates and mystics who, following the fall of the Tang dynasty in China, fled their war-torn homeland for the sanctuary of the Japanese wilderness. These sages and soldiers brought and shared their military strategies, religious philosophies, and perspectives on life to the people of the Japanese mountain communities, creating a new culture that contrasted sharply with the ever-increasing structure and control of mainstream Japan.
It was a very strict and structured society, and in that society there wasn't a lot of space for the sort of thinking that we have the luxury of here in the United States, where you could admire someone who was outside of the rules, who might have been an intelligence gatherer, a spy, that sort of thing. So in that sort of highly structured society, it's easy to see how people who played outside of the rules of accepted society might have been looked down upon, and how that could have been used to quite an advantage for those people as well.
At the height of ninja guerrilla operations in the 15th to the 17th centuries, there existed well over 70 families in the Iga and Kōga regions of old Japan. Each of these families or clans developed their own individual methods of warfare, tactics, and philosophy, some of which were remarkably different in comparison with one another. So in short, one must recognize that each clan, in turn, had its own separate and unique origin. For example, the Togakure-ryu tradition of ninjutsu, headed today by Soke Masaaki Hatsumi of Noda City, Japan, exists as the last legitimate art of ninja combat methods to have survived to the present day. The tradition traces its lineage back 900 years to a young samurai retainer named Daisuke Nishina. According to legend, in the late 1100s, the young Daisuke found himself on the losing side of a battle with the Heike army. Wounded and battle-weary, he was forced to flee his home of Togakure village in present-day Nagano and wander in exile to Iga province hundreds of miles away, to escape the post-battle slaughter. It was there that he would eventually meet the warrior priest Kain-doshi and go on to establish the foundation for what would become known as the Togakure-ryu method of ninjutsu.
He, quote-unquote, didn't found this style in that he was the first one in the line of the tradition who, like people who eventually organized the Ryuha as we see it now today, kind of backdated him as the first Soke.
In the late 15th century, civil war engulfed the whole of Japan. The nation splintered into many territories, each ruled by provincial barons called daimyo. Over the course of more than a century, until the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate in the year 1603, unparalleled battling and bloodshed would occur, as these regional rulers each struggled to expand their power and lands. This period of warring came to be known as the Sengoku Jidai, the age of the warring states.
Well, I think the whole idea of what it would be like to live in those kind of wild, chaotic times as the warring states period is just so difficult for us to imagine in this day and age. I mean, it was the same in Europe, it was the same in Africa. Every day was some kind of a conflict going on. Every day was some kind of a betrayal going on. This is how people managed to survive. Might literally made right. And so constantly one clan, one group, one family was having to work out a deal with another so that they could team up.
It was in this period of Japanese history that the ninja flourished and clan operations reached their pinnacle. Operating primarily out of the remote wilderness villages of the Iga and Kōga areas, ninja clans used their clandestine methods of infiltration, espionage, and at times assassination to assist those regional daimyo that lent safe haven and support to their families.
Part of what that was is that, especially in the Iga and Kōga regions, unlike most of the other prefectures in Japan at the time, they didn't have feudal lords, they didn't have daimyo. They had ruling village chieftains, so they weren't forced under any single daimyo like the other areas were. And because of that, they allowed more autonomy on who to ally with and things like that.
Admission into a clan was determined solely by birth. Clan hierarchy of ninja families was broken down into 3 strata. There was the Jonin, or head of the family, the Chunin, who acted as executive members of the clan, and the Genin, who were the field agents responsible for carrying out the missions. The hierarchy was strict and without compromise, demanding complete and utter loyalty from all clan members, at penalty of death. The survival of the clan required such staunchness of code in an age of such utter violence and bloodshed. Training in the ninja methods began in childhood for most ninja clans. Physical and mental endurance were heightened to extremes through constant instruction in such areas as unarmed combat, sword and spear fighting, blade throwing, fire and explosives usage, and traditional cultural arts. The list of skills goes on.
一言で言えば練習する時間といつ始めるかという問題なんですけどもね、昔は芸事はだいたい3つ3歳の誕生日から始めなさい。そしてもう朝昼晩毎日その稽古をやったわけですね。したがってもう15、16歳で一人前になっている。また日本人の寿命がその当時50歳ですから、それに比べれば15、16歳というのはかなりの年齢に達しているかなと、今と比較してですね、そういうふうに言えると思います。
Any and all possible tactics that could widen the possibility of surviving a mission to return home safely to the family was thoroughly taught and ingrained in the ninja operative. The supernatural legends and superstitions that filled Japanese society surrounding the perception of the ninja were often played upon and used to their advantage in spreading fear and dissension amongst their enemies. Methods looked down upon with disdain by the samurai elite as dishonorable or cowardly were viewed by the ninja warrior mystic as cunning and insightful.
侍とそれから忍者の基本的な違いは、侍は恥を非常に重視します。ところが忍者は恥を与えられればそれを我慢をして、恥辱を忍んで恨みを報じ去るというふうに一般的に言われてるんですけども、その恥を与えられてもじっと我慢をして与えられた任務を完遂するということで、武士が忍者を中傷していろんななんていうんですかね、悪口を言ったりしても、その度に従って忍者はいろいろその技を研究をしたり、あるいは侍にできないようなことを一生懸命練習して、かえって忍者にとってはプラスになったかなというふうに思います。
I think the most important thing to remember about who the ninja were, where they came from, why this happened, was the fact that they were deprived of these were families, these were people deprived of the opportunity to rule themselves, to look after their own welfare, and so they needed to form some method that they thought would get that back for them. They didn't have a tax base, they couldn't raise armies, they were outlawed in effect. So they used the means, and that means was knowing what an enemy might do and forming alliances. So in our own history here in the United States, when I was a child in the 1950s and I read the history of the beginning of the nation, revolution, I had this idea that it was this handful of farmers and tradespeople in America took on the might of the British Empire, and we won. And well, then I got a little older and I studied more of the history, and I realized this is preposterous. How's that gonna happen? Oh, then we hear about what Ben Franklin was doing in Paris, negotiating with the French. So now the ragtag people in the colonies have a big bully that they can set against another big bully, and we won.
Spiritual refinement of the ninja was achieved through the development of an honest and accurate knowledge of self. Acknowledging one's own strengths, viewing situations from altered perspectives, combined with the motivation of love and family security when the need to engage in combat arose, produced a warrior of clear heart and unshakable will.
The character Nin is comprised of two characters, the top character being sword and the bottom character being heart. So it's sword over heart, or even sword piercing heart, which basically gives you the feeling of even if the sword is piercing the heart, I still keep going. So having that fortitude and that perseverance is important not only in training but in life.
It was this strength of character and spirit that allowed the ninja to delve deep into the shadowy world of clandestine operations and the violence often associated with it, and all the while maintain a resolute soul.
As far as the occult is concerned, since they have studied this mystic or art, like a shugendo kind of a thing, they are very familiar with maybe what you call astrology, and so they could tell what was going to happen. And then for average people, it was almost like magic. How can they be? It cannot be true. It was a magic, and therefore they could be labeled as a group of occult group. But in my opinion, they were just so in touch with the nature. Therefore, they had an illusion of as a magic producer.
First off, I believe that you can be a ninja and a warrior and practice Ninpo whether you're Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or Shinto or Catholic or whatever you'd like to be. And I'm not sure there's a religious aspect to the art of ninjutsu or the philosophy of Ninpo. There are truths and there are philosophies that that do not change. And you can practice those philosophies and those truths and use those in your daily life regardless of your religion.
Legends, folklore, and eventually motion pictures have all portrayed the ninja shadow warrior suited from head to toe in an ominous black outfit, more popularly known as the Shinobi Shozoku. It was this attire that the ninja were said to carry out their dangerous missions of espionage, assassination, and political mayhem. While this legend has its basis in a certain amount of truth, the full reality behind the ninja's most well-known disguise is really quite different.
In Kabuki theater, there's no curtains. So there's stagehands called kuroko, which means black child, I guess is the best way to describe it. They were in black uniform, including leg ties and everything, and tabi, just because that was traditional Japanese wear. The difference is they had a veil over their face. In the back of the Kabuki theater was also black. So when the stagehands are moving furniture around for the next scene, you ignored them because, they're just the kuroko. So what they did is, because they wanted the ninja to be invisible, they took the kuroko's uniform, modified it slightly, so at first you're like, oh, it's just a kuroko. Wait a minute, that's not a kuroko. So they wanted, to have the audience ignore them at first. What a ninja would have worn on a mission would have just been peasant clothing, which included a hood, especially in colder weather. You had the hood on, and then you just wrap a scarf around the face.
Yet, as with many things in life, the line between clandestine ninja operative and samurai warrior could, in certain situations, blur and become very gray. Certain prestigious fencing schools of samurai lineage were known to employ ninja tactics and methods in their curriculum of instruction.
まず一般の忍術という概念なんですが、全ての武道の中に、忍術という概念が含まれております。例えば有名な柳生新影流というのがありますけども、これも一応表には剣の流派だというふうに言われてますけども、その実際の戦いにおいては剣だけでは生き残れない。当然体術も必要だし、それから戦術、戦略、いわゆる駆け引き、情報を取ること、これは全て、忍術という言葉で片付けられているわけですね。したがってそれが表に出ないというのは結局何を表に出したかと逆に言うとですね。したがって、忍術の巻物が非常に少ないというのはそこにあります。ただ、万戦集会とかあるいは少人記とかいうような忍術専門の巻物ですね、まとめたもの、これが江戸時代になってから作られております。
The Yagyu Shinkage-ryu has its origins in Yagyu village, which lay at the foot of Mount Kasagi in what was Iga province. The old residence and fencing hall stand quiet and still now, yet old tales and rumors abound, painting the Yagyu family's past as a major source of ninja activity. In some instances, successful ninja operatives who had earned the respect and formidable trust of the lords they served were appointed positions of bushi status. Thus, a dichotomy was born that usually proved beneficial to both the needs of the ruling daimyo as well as to the ninja bushi operative and his clan.
But I believe that the sort of modern concept of there being a culture and a subculture that was clearly defined is not completely accurate. The arts themselves were passed down in the warrior and soldier classes, and regardless of whether or not someone was a samurai, they may have studied aspects of both of those sides of the coin. So it's without doubt there were ninja who were samurai and samurai who were ninja, and some who leaned much more heavily towards one side than the other.
The historical truth that Hatsumi Sensei told me about many times doesn't look like what we might see in some of the movies or comic books. The ninja were not this peasantry. The ninja came from political and military warfare. So they were the aristocrats who ran the government, who ran the welfare, who looked after the security of their lands. They would form an alliance with somebody else. A war happens, somebody loses the war politically, and so now they're on the outs. They're in exile. But the people themselves didn't come from a peasant background. They were educated. They knew how to rule. They knew how to run armies. It's just that suddenly they lost their political base.
Out of the chaos of the Sengoku period, several ninja passed into the annals of myth and legend in Japanese culture. Perhaps the best known is the ninja jonin, Hanzo Hattori, also known as Devil Hanzo. Tales tell of Hanzo's incredible abilities and psychic gifts that helped propel him to become the most successful ninja jonin in Japanese history. Hanzo was born in 1541 and fought his first battle at the age of 16, aiding in a night attack on Udo Castle in 1557. Hanzo's ability to garner hundreds of ninja operatives in short periods of time drew the interest of many regional daimyo, most notably that of the future shogun, Ieyasu Tokugawa. Ieyasu used Hanzo's services on many an occasion in the drive to consolidate his power during the Sengoku period. Upon the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate, Ieyasu appointed Hanzo and his band of operatives in charge of reargate security for Edo Castle. Hanzo died in 1596 at the age of 55 and was succeeded by his son, Masanari Hattori. Taking the train in Nara, northeast to the quiet town of Nabari in present-day Mie Prefecture, followed by a cab ride deep into the Oka-One mountain range, one can still gaze upon one of the former residences of another famous ninja jonin named Sandayu Momochi. Legends speak of the valor of Sandayu in executing missions, and his utter cunning in actual battle against his enemies. Sandayu was said to have several residences in Iga province, which operated as separate bases of clandestine activity. Rumors existed that his true identity was actually that of the famous ninja Nagato Fujibayashi, or perhaps Jonin Tamba Yasumitsu Momochi, although this could never be confirmed. Legend has it that Sandayu was killed in battle in a valiant fight against the forces of the tyrannical lord Oda Nobunaga during campaigns designed to wipe out religious rebels. Yet there are other theories that deny this account and speak of his survival and escape from Nobunaga's forces. Today, the present-day descendant of Sandayu Momochi, Mr. Mikio Momochi, still resides with his wife in the ancient home set deep in the Oka-One range. Though the majority of ninja relics from Sandayu's days were sold off decades ago, a few still remain with the Momochi family to remind them of their famous heritage.
こうやろうこうこう
Oh, okay. Oh, carry to carry box.
400年前にね
400 years old.
この家もそのぐらい前に建てられてで忍者マスターの桃地三代っていう人ねその人がここで生まれたわけね忍者であり武士侍
You know how old this is? This is like probably 400, 500 years old.
これはね400年経ってないかもわからんねこれはねそれほど古いよねこれは400年ほど前だよねでそれからあと新しい、こっちの方がニュー、こっちは350年ぐらい前かなこれのねこれの原型元はポルトガルから日本にこれのオールドスタイルのオールドスタイルのライフルポルトガル from Japan はい何代っていうのどういうんかな私三代ワンはいこう次
はいはい、father, grandfather, great grandfather
桃地三代っていう人から私で19代目19代目19代目
19
19
はいわかる
でこの人が16それから17 18 19
はいわかるすごい
In a country known throughout history and the world for its extremely patriarchal society, the ninja clans of old Japan used women agents, known as kunoichi, oftentimes as much as the male field agents, for missions.
I think it was more easier for them to get information rather than some ninja sneaking into the castle and try to get some documents. It was more easier for the women to do that role. And they were trained in such a way that they can start maybe some sort of rumor, which was not really true, but then that caused some confusion. And I think that is, in my opinion, they were very good at doing things like that.
Of these women operatives, none are as well known through stories and folklore than Chiyome Mochizuki.
Her husband was a nephew of very famous warlord Shingen. And then in a very famous battle called Kawanakajima battle, and then so her husband, Chiyome's husband, was killed in this battle. And so Shingen called her up, wanted to have her come to his castle, and then since the Mochizuki family, they had some bloodline to ninja family, and therefore Shingen thought maybe Chiyome had some ability to work with the miko. The miko is these girls who work at shrines and places like that. And the Shingen was very, very good at using ninjas. And then, so his order to Chiyome was, you organize a group of girls who are trained as a miko, so people will not wonder when they look at these girls, they are miko, they're working at the shrines, and then they can send these girls to all different kinds of shrine, and then it's people do not really wonder about it. And then during that time, late 1500 is Sengoku Jidai, of course, and so there are a lot of battles and it was happening. So the girls were orphaned, maybe they were strayed, and then they were abundant, and it was easy for Chiyome to gather these girls up and train these girls in a general practice of miko. So she emphasized the importance of loyalty to her and therefore these girls were so attached, and the meaning behind the training was to train them as a spy.
In 1571, in the heart of the Sengoku period, a battle took place here, at the Buddhist stronghold of Endyakuji, in the mountains just outside of Kyoto, that would forever go down as one of the greatest recorded battles in ninja lore. So destructive was the battle's outcome that dozens of ninja clans and countless monks and Sohei fighters were either wiped out or crippled in strength to such an extent that a full recovery would never be realized. Of the over 3,000 temples and shrines covering the face of Mount Hiei, only a handful would escape the carnage that was thrust upon the area. Yet this was only a vicious precursor to the forces that would befall the inhabitants of Iga province 10 years later, in 1581. The battle that would come to be known as Tensho Iga no-dan.
Well, the Battle of Iga no Ran was Oda Nobunaga's kind of final solution, you could say. He was on a very strong, iron-fisted campaign to unify all of Japan under him, and has a reputation of being quite a cruel person. And this area of Iga, the homeland of the ninja, was of constant annoyance to him. There was another mountain outside of Kyoto, Hiei Mountain, where the Tendai Buddhist establishment actually had a military branch, if you can imagine such a thing. These two areas were very, very annoying to him because they kept thwarting what he was doing with their alliances. So he took 40-some thousand troops and went down and took on the 4,000 people of Iga. So it was what you would call today just massive superior firepower to end that situation as quickly as possible. And so therefore this invasion of Iga played a strong, was a strong point in the history of why ninjutsu changed and had to become what it did.
In 1603, 3 years after defeating Mitsunari Ishida in the decisive battle at Sekigahara, Ieyasu Tokugawa became shogun, unifying Japan and ending the civil war period that had ravaged Japan for well over a century. In the peace that followed the Tokugawa family's rule over the following 3 centuries, history would find the ninja clans retreating deeper into the wilderness, their clandestine operations declining sharply.
If we look at that and that necessity, which again is so hard for us to imagine living that way, the kind of distrust and violence that could show up on any given day, was suddenly over when the nation was unified under the Tokugawa family. And so the need for a ninja network, for intelligence gathering and so forth, disappeared.
While an unheralded era of peace was ushered into Japan with the Tokugawa's rule, the ninja's label as an outcast and illegal resistance movement grew in parallel proportions. Even mere mention of the word ninja could bring about a swift execution from policing samurai. It is for this reason that the many ninja families returned to their lives as farmers and merchants, shedding any tangible trace of their former ways. For the handful of clans that remained, secluded deep in the wilderness, the combat methods of ninjutsu were passed down through the generations by kuden, or word of mouth. Very little was ever written down in the form of instruction, for fear of being discovered and the family subsequently killed. The golden age of ninja clan activity had passed. Reclusion and silence fell once again upon the shadow warriors and the mountains of Iga and Kōga. In 1625, the Toda family, under Nobutsuna Toda, inherited control of the Togakurei-ryu tradition of ninjutsu in a direct line that stretched back over 400 years to young Daisuke Nishina. In those early and violent centuries, the Togakurei-ryu method had found itself practiced by such noteworthy men as Sandayu Momochi and members of the famous Hattori clan. Under the direction of the Toda clan, the ninjutsu system of Kumogakurei-ryu and the battlefield-tested fighting systems of Koto-ryu and Gyokko-ryu were added and passed down in secret amongst members of the clan. Over the ensuing span of 400 years, the Toda family would guard and transmit the system in a continued effort to ensure the clan's survival.
With the teachings that have been handed down to us from Takamatsu sensei through the lineages, we now have a whole set of different lineages or family traditions that are available to us.
The different schools have different patterns, different principles, and different strategies that are all inherent and actually pulled into the kata themselves. If you take and piece apart all of those different sections to the kata, you look through the way that historically things worked, you come up with strategies that are as good today as they were 1,000 years ago.
It's about distance, timing, rhythm, understanding opponents, understanding what he's going to do, understanding what that weapon is about, understanding your own capabilities. Because we're not all built to be animals. Every American, every person that studies may be older, may be out of shape, may have injuries. My goodness. So is winning only for those who are talented or exceptional or gifted? No way. The common man needs to be able to save his life. So give him a principle that he can use, that he can fit into his world and his life, and let him survive.
Some of the more commonly well-known ones or well-trained ones are the Gyokko-ryu, in which case we have really circular motions, lots of striking, very, very intense locking techniques, very painful.
Koto-ryu is more linear in movement. It has straightforward, short distances between your opponents. It's you either knock a person up, knock them down, or open them up by knocking the arms in certain ways.
The Togakurei-ryu, known for its ninjutsu, fantastic thinking, really changes the way you look at fighting or the way you think about ancient traditions of fighting. The Kukishin-ryu, another one handed down to us. We get a lot of our weapons techniques from there, especially the staff, the shorter sticks, even some sword techniques, spear techniques. Very, very battlefield-oriented school, very dangerous. On another plane entirely, we see two jujitsu schools in our traditions, the Takagi Yoshin-ryu and the Shinden Fudo-ryu. Both of them have very fabulous techniques of locking and throwing an opponent fairly effortlessly, but with very big differences. One of them, the Takagi Yoshin-ryu, will do those locks but still stay far away from someone, keeping themselves out of harm's way, whereas Shinden Fudo-ryu fighters are very comfortable being up close and grabbing an opponent and grappling with them in close quarters. There are so many lineages that came out of Japan. Even within our own set, we have others like the Gikan-ryu or the Kumogakurei-ryu or Gyokushin-ryu, which there's really very few people that could say anything intelligent about. Very few people train in those lineages or traditions at all.
When it comes to training, there's another common perception, which is that you can take all the hardness out of your training and get straight to the soft stuff. It seems as though it's odd to me that every single person that I know who can hit extremely hard and who says you don't have to, used to. There's no way around spending your time in hitting things hard before you learn how to take the hardness out and make it soft. And there's no way to understand the principles of what Jutai teaches you, for example, unless you understand the principles of what Daken Taijutsu teaches you. There's no way to fully appreciate linear styles unless you understand circular strategy. There's no way to understand circular strategy unless you know how a linear style works. All these pieces come together, and uniquely within the traditions that we have, these pieces all come together and allow us to train from every single facet instead of having a school and a piece of strategy that you so tightly cling to that you're trapped by the way the school moves. That's one of the beautiful things to having the freedom that we have with having the number of traditions that we have behind us, is allowing us to move effortlessly from school to school, pick up the different traits, the different strategy, the different principles. Every single one of those pieces congruently fits as its own individual unit, and we can move in and out of them at will, which gives us significant advantage when it comes to being able to identify not only what's happening around you, but the most appropriate reaction.
You can't go out into a full force fight and have somebody resist you, so how do you find an in-between? By retracting maneuvers, you can learn a great deal about how movement really is. For example, gun defense. Someone will have a gun out there and you'll see martial artists or people will take the gun away in 1,000 different fashions. But what they're leaving out is the reality of the threat, and how the minute you go to make a move, the guy's going to retract and pull the trigger, or extend forward and pull the trigger, and that changes everything and eliminates 90% of anything you can do. And so what I do is factor in this principle of retraction in my movement. So if I go to defend against a gun, I'm automatically going to chase in and deal with the retraction, and it gives me a much higher percentage or chance of being able to pull off a move. And so it might look similar to other martial arts maneuvers, but the application of getting in there deals with natural human reactions.
僕のため勉強武道とか忍術を習いに来る人はね、やっぱり人生生きるために必要な一つの大切な何かだなと思って、皆さんね、参考に勉強に来るわけね。生きるためのね、資料としてハートとして来るわけだ。
Based out of Ueno Village in south-central Iga, the Togakure-ryu survived through a tight veil of secrecy to become the only known remaining ninjutsu system to emerge from the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate in the 19th century. In 1898, Shinryuken Masamitsu Toda, the 32nd headmaster and a sword instructor to the Tokugawa family, began the instruction of a new student at the request of a close relative. It was his grandson. Young and weak at the age of 9, the boy would eventually go on to become the last true combat-experienced ninja in Japanese history. His name was Hisatsugu Takamatsu. Takamatsu, who later changed his first name to Toshitsugu, was born on March 10th, 1889. His father, Gishin Takamatsu, was a religious leader, politician, and owner of a match factory in Kobe. Determined to strengthen his son in preparation for service in the military, he sent him to train at the dojo of Shinryuken Toda. Over the next 5 years, he would endure the harsh training of his grandfather and go on to become a recognized master of the Shinden Fudoryu fighting art at the mere age of 13. The young Takamatsu, nicknamed Kotora, or Young Tiger, had developed into a ferocious fighter, reputedly undefeated in matches both inside the dojo and outside on the streets of Kobe. It was during this time also that Takamatsu began martial instruction under 2 other veteran battlers, Matsutaro Ishitani and Yoshitaro Tadafusa Mizuta. In a time when native-born killing arts were looked down upon as ungentlemanly and anachronistic, the brash Takamatsu leapt at the chance to learn such methods, methods disappearing as quickly as the samurai culture they had served for centuries upon centuries.
During the Meiji Restoration, when the samurai class was disbanded, virtually anything that was a part of that samurai class, the combat arts especially, were sort of looked down upon. So many of the people who were involved in that sort of training and activity had to modify what they did to make it something that would be socially acceptable. So my understanding in Japanese history is that was the beginning of looking towards the transformation of the warrior arts into the gentlemanly arts. And some people still make the mistake of thinking that transformation is easy to reverse, but it's really quite difficult to reverse. Much of the heart and spirit is lost once that's thoroughly set in.
By the age of 22, Takamatsu had become a recognized master and inheritor of 9 distinct warrior arts, 6 of samurai lineage, and 3 of ninja clan lineage, passed down from Toda, Ishitani, and Mizuta. Unable to test his skills in the peaceful and structured society of New Japan, Takamatsu traveled to politically unstable China, where his abilities would be put to good use. Yet after only a short visit, he was forced to return home, having contracted a severe case of tapeworms and beriberi, which afflicted his legs. Unwilling to pose a burden on his relatives, the ailing young warrior brought himself here, to Mount Maya just outside of Kobe. Feeling sure that death would soon overcome him, he dragged his swollen legs through the mountain forest to the edge of the secluded Kame no Taki waterfall. It was along the banks of the falls that he would be found by an old wandering ascetic named Tamaoki and nursed back to health. Once fully recovered, Takamatsu spent the next few months in the wilds of the Mount Maya wilderness, building his perspective. With a new lease on life and renewed vigor, Takamatsu headed back to China, where he would stay for close to 10 years, teaching martial arts to scores of Chinese, English, and French in order to survive. During this time, he would also engage in numerous fighting matches and challenges to the death, never losing once. As a result of such victories, his reputation grew throughout various political circles and China's violent underworld, counting among his associations such men as famed Mongolian warlord Zhang Zuolin and Puyi, the last emperor of China and puppet emperor of Manchu Kuo. In 1919, Takamatsu finally left China and returned to Japan. Over the next few decades, he would marry and become an ordained Buddhist priest, though he would later renounce the title, finding organized religion open to corruption and unnecessary for spiritual growth. All the while, he continued his instruction of the martial arts to various students. Yet it wasn't until the year 1957, at the age of 68, that Takamatsu would meet the young man destined to become his successor and the 34th heir to the Togakureryu ninja legacy, 27-year-old Yoshiaki Hatsumi. Throughout his teenage and adult years, Yoshiaki Hatsumi trained passionately in many of the popular martial arts of the time. Still, even after receiving black belt licenses in such arts as Aikido, Karate, and judo, something compelled him to continue searching for a martial method not confined by the rules of sport and competition, a fighting art that dealt with the raw reality of life and death struggles. It was only upon his introduction to Toshitsugu Takamatsu, the Mongolian tiger, as he was once called, that he finally ended his quest. Every weekend for 15 years, the young Hatsumi traveled the length of Japan from his home in Noda City in Chiba Prefecture to Takamatsu's residence in Kashiwabara in the Nara area to train under the warrior sage. It was during these formative training years that Hatsumi, having changed his first name to Masaaki, also began instruction of his initial set of students that would eventually form the core of his senior instructor group. In 1971, the aging battler, Takamatsu, passed on the title of Soke of his 9 inherited fighting traditions to Hatsumi in a small private ceremony, telling Hatsumi that he had taught him everything he knew. Everything. Having repaid his debt to his teachers Toda, Ishitani, and Mizuta for their kindness, he then planned to spend his remaining days in the spiritual study of nature. 1 year later, on April 2nd, 1972, Toshitsugu Takamatsu quietly passed away at his home in Kashiwabara. Little would he have imagined the onslaught of worldwide attention that would soon surround his secretly kept art, due primarily to the passionate efforts of one young American from Dayton, Ohio, a man named Stephen K. Hayes. In 1975, Stephen Hayes traveled to Noda City, Japan, in search of Masaaki Hatsumi, the man he read about in a 60s publication about the ninja legend. After a brief introduction to the Grandmaster and one of his senior students, Hayes found himself accepted into a small and exclusive group of practitioners studying the last legitimate method of ninja combat. Hayes was not the first foreigner to ever study the art, yet it was his overwhelming zeal and passion that would propel him to the media forefront in the martial arts scene upon his return to the United States in 1980, setting the stage for the explosion of the ninja phenomenon.
Well, when I first went to Japan, my teacher, Hatsumi Sensei, his teacher had just died right before that, a couple of years before, and I didn't really know this, so I went to Japan thinking I was going to find the Grandmaster, a big school. This is a phenomenal cultural thing. I thought it would look like the Kodokan of Judo, perhaps, or the Hombu of Aikido, and no, not at all. What Sensei was going through then in his early 40s was a sense of needing to test all of this out. His teacher was gone. He couldn't go there for advice. So he had a small group of people that were his training partners, really. The emphasis back in those days was on the ninja mindset, the ninja combat method, and that's what I went there. I asked for specifically. So my first 3 licenses, belt licenses that I got, were in the Togakure Ryu. By the time I got my 4th level license, 4th degree, Hatsumi Sensei had gone more public with it, and that was issued under the Bujinkan, Ninpo Taijutsu. But the first one, strictly ninjutsu, that's what I went to study.
Throughout the early 80s, ninja-related films, books, and publications swept the martial arts scene with a tsunami-like force.
You know, it was a whirlwind between, we've appeared in probably 100 different magazine articles, and every month or every couple of weeks we were kicking out articles. At the same time, I'm teaching constantly. I was very, very busy. I'm much more rested now. At the time, I mean, I probably get 4 hours sleep a night, and we had people coming from all over the world to train. You'd see them flying from Israel and England and Australia. It was just incredible. And I never took it lightly. I always felt like I was very excited about it, and I loved it, and it was really, really great.
The books sold enormous numbers for technical kind of a book, enormous numbers. The people at the Black Belt magazine invited me to come out and be on the cover of their yearbook like 3 different times, and this was unheard of.
In 1982, Masaaki Hatsumi made the first of what would become many historic visits to the United States to oversee ninjutsu instruction, attending Stephen Hayes' annual training festival in Ohio. It was with that visit that the training explosion would really begin, and the last surviving ninja art would truly move out of the shadows.
Everybody in the world came out of the woodwork, from assassins to mercenaries to people wanting to learn how to make poisons and all that kind of thing. So the negative aspect is, I think the negative image of what the media or Hollywood would like the ninja to be spread as well. But most Ninpo practitioners are gentlemen or ladies. They're not assassins. Can be, could be if they had to be, but most of them are gentlemen and very fine people.
The most positive was that the art became available to people outside of Japan, and because of that I was able to get involved in training, and thousands of other people were able to get involved in training, and that's a really wonderful thing. The negative side was that it grew so quickly that there was not a lot of careful growth, and that sort of weak growth made for a lot of weak skills. So everyone who got involved during that time really needs to take a very strong look at themselves and try to strengthen their knowledge and skill base.
Practitioners from around the world would begin to trek to the States to train at the seminars of such men as Stephen Hayes and his senior students, Bud Malmstrom and Jack Hoban. Workshops by a charismatic young Nebraskan named Robert Bussey also became extremely popular. Bussey, like Hayes, had also made the journey to Japan in the late 70s to train in the art.
I became very attached to ninjutsu because I really started to see that as that ultimate art that had everything going for it. It had not just striking maneuvers, but finishing moves and weaponry and those kind of things which interested me. So really my journey to Japan had a lot to do with me trying to find a system that really suited me, that was all-encompassing, that would really kind of satisfy my need to be as pragmatic and efficient as I could.
He became renowned for his aggressive and practical application of it, and by the mid-80s was running the largest ninjutsu school in the United States.
One misconception is that I created my own thing and that it was completely separate from the ninja art in some way, but it really isn't true. I could certainly practice and demonstrate the maneuvers of classical ninjutsu. I just chose not to do that. And so that created a bit of a rift, and so the magazines then kind of jumped on board, and it helped sell magazines for one thing, but it was also really good because it drew attention to the different philosophies that were associated with the ninja art back then.
Yet the speed of such phenomenal growth for the art and the positive effects it breeds often come at a price. The oversaturation of the ninja phenomenon upon the masses eventually led to its own collapse, and by the onset of the 90s, ninja-related films and training seminars had dwindled, leaving only a small number of true practitioners to carry on the tradition. It seemed the art had found its way back into the shadows. Today, organizations such as the Bujinkan, headed by Soke Masaaki Hatsumi, the Jinenkan, headed by Kancho Unsui Manaka, and the Genbukan, headed by Kancho Shoto Tanemura, and the Quest Center Group, headed by Anshu Stephen K. Hayes, exist as the last legitimate doorway to the once secret fighting arts of the elusive ninja phantom warriors. Although his method is a variant offshoot of the traditional ninja arts, Mr. Robert Bussey also continues his pragmatic approach to self-defense through the Robert Bussey and Associates personal protection consulting firm. Different organizations, different approaches, a shared tradition. With perseverance, it is through these men and women that the ninja's approach to survival, winning, and the continued enjoyment of life will be carried into the winds for future generations to follow and nurture.
僕もね、生きてる人間でね、忍術、得得してるのは今のところ僕ね。で、今もだけどもまだ高松先生のについてもあの世にいらっしゃるけど僕は勉強してるわけです。ね、ですから今世界中にたくさん僕の弟子がいますけどもね、それもやっぱり僕について勉強してなくちゃいけないわけね。これが長い長い伝統ですよね。その伝統の中のいいものから現在に生きられる感覚を養うのがとても大切なんです。
I've learned over the years that there's a few reasons why people really want to get involved: hope and significance, and a sense of belonging. But I don't care if you're a novice or you're a martial arts master. The bottom line is, in your heart of hearts, you want to know that you have the ability to protect yourself and your